Hello there and welcome Scientific Serenity. Tonight we travel to a quiet bridge in Scotland, a place wrapped in mist, stone, and unanswered questions. For decades, something has drawn dogs to the very same point on this bridge. They pause, they stare, and then they jump. No warning, no sound. Just the same spot again and again. Scientists tried to explain it. Locals learned to fear it. And still the bridge remains. As you listen, you don't need to find the answer. Just follow the story. And let the mystery carry you gently into sleep. If this story keeps you company tonight, you're already in the right place. You can quietly support these night journeys by liking the video or subscribing if you wish to return. And if a thought drifts through your mind, you're welcome to leave it below. Now there's nothing else you need to do. Just listen and let the night unfold. In the mist-shrouded heart of Western Scotland, near the town of Dumbarton, there stands a bridge. Not a remarkable bridge by any architectural measure. It is a Victorian-era structure of local stone, built in 1895 by Lord Overtoun to span the Overtoun Burn, a small rushing stream that has carved a deep, green ravine through the landscape. It has 3 arches, a parapet wall just over chest high, and offers a view of a modest waterfall. It is, in every ordinary sense, unremarkable. But this bridge holds a secret. A dark, persistent, and heartbreaking secret that has earned it a name whispered among locals and documented in veterinary journals. The Bridge of No Return. For over half a century, this seemingly innocuous structure has been the stage for a behavior so bizarre, so statistically impossible, and so tragically consistent that it defies belief. Since the 1950s, more than 600 dogs have, without warning or apparent provocation, hurled themselves from the same exact spot on the bridge's parapet, falling 50 feet, nearly 15 meters, onto the jagged rocks and rushing water below. Many have died. Others have survived, only to climb back up the steep, rocky slope, return to the bridge and jump again. This is not urban legend. It is a documented, repeated, and deeply investigated phenomenon. The dogs are of all breeds and sizes: Labradors, Collies, Terriers, Retrievers. They are walked by experienced owners, often on familiar routes. They are on leashes, off leashes, happy, calm, well-trained. They approach the midpoint of the bridge, and then, as if seized by an invisible, irresistible command, they scramble up the stone parapet and leap into the void. Our story begins not with a theory, but with the raw, unsettling fact of the leap itself. Picture it, a typical damp Scottish afternoon. The air is cool, smelling of peat and wet fern. A owner walks their dog, a steady, friendly animal, across Overtoun Bridge. The dog sniffs the air, wags its tail. Then, as they reach a specific point between the second and third arches, the dog's behavior changes. Its ears may perk. Its nose lifts, twitching violently. Its focus locks, not on something across the bridge, but on something below the parapet wall. In a flash, it pulls away, claws finding purchase on the rough stone, and launches itself over the edge. The owner's scream is swallowed by the wind and the roar of the waterfall. The whole event takes less than 10 seconds. Some who have witnessed it describe the dog's expression not as one of fear, but of singular, focused determination. It is not a panicked fall, it is a deliberate jump. And perhaps most chilling of all, dogs that survive the fall and are rescued often show an intense desire to return to that exact spot and repeat the act, as if completing a mission interrupted. What could possibly compel a creature, an animal beloved for its loyalty and instinct for self-preservation, to commit what appears to be an act of suicide? The immediate suspect is, of course, prey. Could an animal below, a squirrel, a rabbit, be triggering a chase instinct so overpowering it overrides the dog's sense of danger? But the drop is sheer and obvious. And why would hundreds of dogs, over decades, all be triggered by the same transient creature? Perhaps it is a scent. A smell so compelling, so fundamentally irresistible to the canine olfactory system, that it overrides all other inputs. This is the leading scientific theory which we will explore in depth later. But even this raises more questions than answers. What scent? Why only at that precise spot? And why do some dogs seem to survive, recover, and then feel the pull to do it again? Or could it be something else? Something that touches on the older, deeper stories that cling to this glen like the perpetual mist. The locals have a name for places like Overtoun Bridge. They call it a thin place. In Celtic lore, a thin place is where the veil between this world and the next, between the material and the spiritual, is worn whisper thin. They are places of heightened perception, of haunting, of uncanny events. Is it possible that dogs, with senses far sharper than our own, are perceiving something in that thin place? A presence, a call, a doorway that we cannot? Before we venture into the realms of science or the supernatural, we must first stand on the cold stone of the bridge and acknowledge the profound, aching mystery of the act itself. The leap of faith. A plunge taken not in despair, but in response to a call only the leaper can hear. To understand the depth of the mystery, we must move from the single shocking event to the chilling pattern that emerges when we view the decades of incidents as a whole. This is not random tragedy. It is a phenomenon with rules, a grim consistency that points to a specific localized cause. The pattern is precise, almost ritualistic. The location, the jumps do not occur randomly along the bridge. They cluster at a single specific point, between the second and third arches on the right-hand side, facing away from the Overtoun house. It is always from the same side, the same section of parapet. The dogs. No breed is immune, but long-nosed, scent-driven breeds like Labradors, Collies, and Spaniels are disproportionately represented. Yet even smaller terriers and unexpected breeds like Staffordshires have been recorded. The conditions, the jumps occur in all weather. Sun, rain, fog. They happen throughout the year. Time of day does not seem to be a primary factor. The aftermath. Veterinarians and animal behaviorists who have treated survivors report a common thread. The dogs, once recovered, show no lingering fear of the bridge or the height. In fact, many display a strong, often agitated desire to return to the very spot from which they leaped. This is perhaps the most baffling detail of all. An animal that survives a traumatic fall would, by instinct, develop an aversion to the location. Here the opposite occurs. It is as if the bridge holds a positive reinforcement, a reward so powerful it overrides pain and survival instinct. This pattern rules out many simple explanations. It is not a case of slippery stones or poor visibility. It is not a generalized canine panic attack. Something at that specific point on the bridge is triggering a specific hardwired sequence of behavior in the canine brain. The human toll of this phenomenon is a story in itself. Imagine the horror of the owners, people who loved their companions, who were enjoying a peaceful walk in a beautiful place, only to witness what appears to be a sudden voluntary death wish. The psychological impact is profound. Many speak of feelings of guilt, confusion, and a lingering sense of the uncanny. They replay the moment in their minds, the normal sniffing, the sudden pause, the intense focus, the explosive leap. They search for a sign they missed, a reason they failed to provide. Their testimonies add layers to the mystery. Some report that in the moments before the jump, their dog's body would become rigid, its tail would stop wagging, and its gaze would fix on a point in the void below the parapet. It was not a look of fear but of absorption, as if the dog was listening intently to a song only it could hear, or zeroing in on a scent of unimaginable potency. This collective experience has woven a shroud of dread and fascination around Overtoun Bridge. Locals began to call it the Dog Suicide Bridge, a label that, while sensational, captures the unsettling reality. Paths were diverted. Warnings were posted. The bridge, once a simple rural crossing, became a pilgrimage site for the curious, the paranormal investigators, and the heartbroken. But before the investigators and the cameras arrived, the land itself had a story to tell. The Overtoun estate sits in a region steeped in ancient history and darker folklore. This is the land of the Celts, of the kingdom of Strathclyde, a landscape where every glen and stream has a legend. The bridge crosses the Overtoun Burn, which flows through a deep, wooded gorge, exactly the kind of place described in folklore as a gateway to the otherworld. In Celtic belief, such places were not merely scenic. They were liminal spaces, thresholds where the rules of our world grew thin. Could the bridge be built upon such a threshold? And if so, what does that mean for the dogs? Are they, with senses tuned to frequencies we lost long ago, responding to a presence, a call, or a tear in the fabric of the place itself? Soundscape shifts. The sounds of the glen are joined by older, subtler layers. The faint echo of a Gaelic lament sung by a single voice, carried on the wind. The rustle of leaves that sounds like whispered words. The very air feels thicker, charged with memory. We stand at a crossroads between the physical and the metaphysical. The patterned, repeatable nature of the jumps demands a physical explanation. But the location's history, the behavior of the survivors, and the sheer weight of witness testimony open a door to something else. Something that lives in the stories told before the bridge was even built. Before we invite science into the ravine, we must listen to the stories the land has been telling for centuries. For they may hold the key to understanding why this spot, of all spots, holds such a deadly fascination. As the echoes of splashes fade and the stories of heartbroken owners settle into the glen's damp air, we are left with a profound unease. The leap of faith is not just a bizarre animal behavior. It is a rupture in our understanding of the bond between instinct, environment, and perception. It forces us to confront a simple, terrifying question. What do they know that we do not? Dogs are our ancient companions. We have shaped their evolution and they have shaped our history. We trust their senses as extensions of our own diminished perceptions. They sniff out drugs, find the lost, warn of seizures, and comfort the grieving. Their reality is richer, smellier, and in many ways more immediate than ours. At Overtoun Bridge, that trusted reality seems to diverge violently from our own. While we see a stone bridge and a scenic drop, they seem to perceive a siren call so powerful it overrides the most basic commandment of biology: preserve thyself. This disconnect is the core of the horror. It suggests that our shared world is not as shared as we believe, that there are layers to reality, chemical, auditory, perhaps even spiritual, that are vivid and compelling to them, but are to us as invisible and silent as radio waves to a human ear. The bridge itself becomes a character in this drama. Built in the confident, industrial age of Victoria, it is a symbol of human dominion over nature, a stone pathway imposed upon a wild ravine. Yet, this very act of imposition may have unintentionally channeled or amplified something that was already there. Perhaps the architects, in choosing the perfect span, unknowingly built their bridge directly over an ancient confluence of energies, a natural hotspot in the landscape's subtle geography. The stone parapet, at just that height, becomes the perfect launchpad for a creature seized by an impulse originating not in front of it, but beneath and within the very spot it stands. This leads us to the concept of the call. Across cultures, there are tales of places that call certain beings to their doom. The Lorelei Rock in the Rhine, whose siren song lured sailors to crash. The magnetic hills that seem to pull cars uphill. Overtoun Bridge may be a canine version of this archetype. The call here is not auditory to us, but it may be olfactory, vibrational, or something else entirely. It is specific, localized, and fatally attractive to one species. As we close this first chapter, we do not have answers. Instead, we have a carefully drawn map of the mystery's contours. We have the where, the precise spot on the bridge, the what, the sudden, deliberate leap, and the who, dogs of all kinds. We also have the haunting after, the survivor's desire to return. What we lack are the why and the how. These questions will lead us down two parallel paths in the chapters to come. One path is lit by the flashlights of scientists and animal behaviorists, seeking a tangible trigger in molecules and sound waves. The other path winds through the mist of folklore and the dark history of the land itself, where tales of thin places and tragic human events whisper of a different kind of truth. Overtoun Bridge stands between these worlds, a silent arbiter. It invites investigation yet guards its secret. For every dog that leaps, it seems to ask us, how much of the world are you willing to believe in? The leap of faith then may not only be the dog's. It may also be ours, a challenge to leap beyond our comfortable explanations and into the deeper, stranger waters of a mystery that has chosen man's best friend as its messenger. To understand the land upon which Overtoun Bridge stands, we must step back, far back, from the Victorian stone and the modern mystery. We must listen to the older stories, the ones carved not in stone, but in the memory of the people and the very soil of the glen. For in Scotland, the landscape is never just scenery. It is a living parchment, inscribed with layers of myth, memory, and meaning. This region, surrounding the town of Dumbarton, was once the heart of the ancient kingdom of Strathclyde, a Britannic realm that held out against invaders for centuries. The Celts who lived here did not see the world as a dead collection of matter. They saw it as animated, filled with spirits, the genii locorum, the guardians of place. Rivers, trees, mountains, and glens each had their own consciousness, their own power. Certain locations were known to be thresholds, places where the veil between the world of the living and Sail Seo and the other world and Sail Isle was tissue thin. These were the thin places. A thin place is not necessarily good or evil. It is simply potent. It is a location where the spiritual energy of the land is so concentrated that communication, perception, and transition between worlds becomes possible. Such places were often marked by water, a spring, a waterfall, a confluence of streams, just like the Overtoun burn cascading through its deep ravine. The bridge, though modern, spans one of these ancient charged sites. Local folklore whispers that the Overtoun Gorge has long been considered such a place. Stories passed down tell of fairy folk, Deo and Sith, seen in the mists, of strange lights, and of a palpable feeling of being watched from the wooded slopes. It was said that animals behaved oddly here long before the bridge was built. Sheep would bolt, dogs would whine and pull at their leads, birds would fall silent. The gorge was, and perhaps still is, a sentinel landscape, a place that guards a gateway. This brings us to the persistent supernatural theory about the dogs. They are seeing or sensing something we cannot. In many cultures, animals are considered more sensitive to spiritual presences. Their vision extends into ultraviolet spectrums. Their hearing captures frequencies beyond our range. Their sense of smell constructs a multidimensional world from chemical traces. If a thin place emits some form of energy, a residual haunting, a geomagnetic anomaly, or the presence of non-corporeal entities, it is logical that dogs would perceive it first and most intensely. What might they be perceiving? Some paranormal investigators suggest the dogs are seeing the White Lady of Overtoun, a spectral figure reportedly seen wandering the grounds of the nearby Overtoun house. Could her sorrow or the energy of her tragedy be spilling into the gorge, manifesting as a compelling vision or sent to a canine psyche? Others, delving deeper into Celtic myth, suggest it could be a fetch or a phantom hound, a spirit animal that leads the living into the other world. The dog's leap in this reading is not suicide, but an attempt to follow a perceived pack leader or an irresistible spectral prey into the realm it guards. But the supernatural layer of Overtown's story took a devastatingly human turn in 1994, an event that permanently stained the bridge's history with a different kind of tragedy. A man named Kevin Rush, in the grip of a severe psychotic episode, believed his infant son was the Antichrist. He carried the child to Overtoun Bridge and threw him over the parapet. He then attempted to kill himself. The child miraculously survived. Rush was later diagnosed with schizophrenia and found not guilty by reason of insanity. This horrific act fused the bridge's modern canine mystery with an ancient template of human sacrifice and threshold violence. In the old days, liminal places like fords and bridges were sometimes used for offerings to appease the spirits of the place. While Rush's act was born of madness, not ritual, it superimposed a human trauma onto a location already ripe with supernatural lore. Some believe such an act of violence can charge a thin place, amplifying its energy, leaving a psychic scar that sensitive creatures, like dogs, might react to decades later. Could the dogs be sensing the residual anguish of that day? Or the older, darker energies of the land itself? Are they, in their innocent perception, responding to a call that is not meant for them from a gate they were never meant to cross? The human tragedy of 1994 forces us to consider a profound and unsettling intersection. The point where place, psyche, and story collide. Can a location's reputation, its folklore, its history of strange events, actually shape the events that happen there? This is the concept of psychogeography, the study of the precise laws and specific effects of the geographical environment, consciously organized or not, on the emotions and behavior of individuals. Overtoun Bridge is a textbook case of potent psychogeography. Its physical reality, a high-walled bridge over a deep, wooded, rushing gorge, creates a natural sense of awe and slight peril. Its history layers this with ancient thin place lore. Then, the modern canine phenomena and the Rush tragedy cement its reputation as a cursed or haunted spot. This reputation itself becomes an energy field. Owners approach the bridge with subconscious anxiety, which transmits to their dogs. Paranormal investigators arrive with their sensitive equipment and their desire to find evidence, potentially amplifying any subtle natural phenomena through expectation. But this doesn't explain the dog's specific, repeatable behavior. Anxiety might make a dog nervous, but it doesn't compel a deliberate, focused leap from a specific spot. For that, we must look for a trigger that exists independently of human belief, even if human history has made us more likely to notice it. Let's examine the bridge's design through a supernatural lens. The parapet walls are about 4 feet high, high enough that a dog must actively scramble to get over, but low enough to make it possible. The chosen jump point is not at the apex of the arch, but on the approach, where the wall meets a solid, angled stone base that provides a perfect launch platform. It is, almost architecturally, an invitation to climb. From that spot, the view for a dog is not of the distant horizon, but of the dense, shaded undergrowth of the gorge directly below. It is a portal of green darkness. In supernatural terms, this could be seen as a natural altar or offering point. If the gorge is a thin place, a gateway, then this spot on the bridge is the threshold sill. The act of leaping is not a fall, but a transition. The dogs, driven by an instinct we cannot fathom, are attempting to cross. This idea is supported by the behavior of the survivors. If the leap were triggered by a simple, frightening stimulus, like a sudden loud noise, the dog would associate the location with terror. But the survivor's desire to return suggests the stimulus is attractive, even addictive. In folklore, fairy gold turns to leaves in the morning. Fairy music lures listeners forever. Could the dogs be experiencing a supernatural allure, a scent, a sound, a vision that promises something profoundly rewarding? Their return is an attempt to regain access to that reward, despite the physical punishment. Now let's layer the 1994 tragedy back onto this. From a purely psychological perspective, a location of profound human trauma can generate what parapsychologists call place memory or residual haunting. Not an intelligent spirit, but a recording of intense emotion stamped onto the environment. The sudden, violent emotion of that day, the father's psychotic conviction, the infant's terror, might have left an imprint. Dogs, as empathic creatures highly attuned to human emotional energy, might be reacting to this lingering emotional resonance. They could be smelling the pheromonal ghost of fear, or perceiving a distortion in the ambient emotional field that to them is as vivid as a shout. Combine this with the ancient thin place energy, and you have a potent cocktail. A location naturally predisposed to heightened phenomena, overlaid with a recent, massive trauma. The bridge becomes a wound in the landscape, and the dogs are drawn to sniff at it, to investigate the source of the psychic scent. Their leap could be an extreme investigation, a desperate attempt to reach the source of the compelling, confusing signals bombarding their senses. Soundscape shifts. The sounds of sorrow and wind are joined by new, more modern layers. The static crackle of an EMF, electromagnetic field, detector, the soft click of a camera shutter, the murmured voices of ghost hunters. These sounds are clinical yet charged with expectation. They represent the modern human attempt to measure the immeasurable. We are left with two parallel truths. The folkloric truth: the bridge is a sentinel place, a guardian of a gate, and the dogs are sensitive to its power. And the psychological truth: human belief and human tragedy have charged this location with a reputation and an emotional energy that may interact with canine perception in unpredictable ways. Whether the cause is ancient spirits or modern trauma, or a terrifying synergy of both, the result is the same: a silent call from the gorge that only dogs seem to hear, compelling them to make a faithless leap from a bridge that watches and waits. We have walked the misty path of folklore and stood in the shadow of human horror. Now we must ask, do these strands, the ancient thin place and the modern tragedy, weave together to form a coherent explanation for the canine phenomenon? Or do they simply deepen the aura of mystery, providing a narrative where science sees only anomaly? There is a compelling, if unsettling, synthesis. Imagine the Overtoun Gorge as a psychic amplifier. Its natural properties as a watery, deep, and wooded liminal space make it inherently sensitive to emotional and spiritual energy. For centuries, it may have absorbed the subtle impressions of passers-by, the fears, hopes, and prayers of those who crossed the burn. Then, in 1994, it received a massive, traumatic shockwave. The concentrated agony and madness of the Rush incident. This wasn't just another emotional event. It was an act of extreme violence at a threshold, the kind of act that, in esoteric traditions, is said to tear the veil. This tear, or this intensely charged imprint, could have altered the site's frequency. What was once a subtle thin place might have become a warped or bleeding place. The natural allure that might have caused animals to pause and behave oddly could have been magnified into a compelling, distorting signal. Now enter the dog. Its reality is built on scent and sound. It does not dismiss subtle energies as imagination. If the gorge now emits a powerful, discordant signal, a mixture of ancient gate energy and fresh human trauma, the dog's senses would light up. This signal might not be a literal smell or sound, but something more fundamental. A distortion in the environmental baseline that the animal interprets as the most important thing in the world. The leap, then, is not towards death, but towards source identification. It is the ultimate investigative act. The dog, overwhelmed by a signal it cannot locate on the bridge itself, because the source is below in the charged gorge, takes the only logical action to find it. It goes to where the signal is strongest. It leaps into the epicenter. The survivors who return are not suicidal. They are obsessed. The signal is still there, unresolved. They are drawn back to complete the investigation, to solve the puzzle that is screaming at their senses. This theory bridges the supernatural and the psychological. It doesn't require ghosts, but it accepts that places can hold memory and energy in ways we are just beginning to comprehend. It also explains the specificity. The signal is strongest in that spot because of the gorge's acoustics, the airflow funneling sense upward, or the confluence of geological and emotional energies right below that section of the bridge. The supernatural sentinel is not necessarily a ghostly lady or a phantom hound. The sentinel is the place itself. It is the land, imprinted and wounded, broadcasting a signal of wrongness. And the dogs, our loyal, sensitive companions, are the only ones tuned to its frequency. They are the canaries in this coal mine of psychogeography, reacting to a toxicity we cannot perceive. This leaves us with a profound responsibility. If the land is wounded, what does our repeated witnessing of this canine reaction do? Does our fascination, our fear, our own storytelling feed the phenomenon? Are we, by turning Overtoun Bridge into a legend, reinforcing the very signal that calls the dogs? As we prepare to leave the realm of the supernatural and invite science to the bridge, we carry with us this humbling thought. Sometimes the oldest stories and the deepest tragedies are not explanations in competition with science. They are the context without which science sees only data, not meaning. The gorge's whisper of otherworld and its scream of human pain form the backdrop against which the strange, precise behavior of the dogs plays out. The bridge stands as a sentinel between worlds and between ways of knowing. It guards its secret not with silence, but with a repeated, tragic performance that challenges us to listen not just with instruments, but with the parts of our minds that still remember how to hear the land. We now turn from the echoes of folklore and trauma to the tangible, molecular world, the world of scent. If the supernatural theories speak to the why, science must first address the how. How could a specific spot on a bridge compel a specific action from a diverse range of dogs? In 2005, the mystery attracted the attention of a man uniquely qualified to ask this question. Dr. David Sands, a renowned animal behaviorist and canine psychologist. Sands approached Overtoun Bridge not as a haunted site, but as a behavioral puzzle. He started with the most powerful sense in the canine arsenal: olfaction. A dog's nose is not just sensitive, it is a parallel reality constructor. Where we see a park, a dog smells a dynamic, layered history of who passed by, what they ate, their emotional state, and what animals scurried through the grass hours ago. If something was triggering the leaps, it was most likely speaking the language dogs understand best, the language of smell. Sands's methodology was systematic. He surveyed the bridge, the gorge below, and the surrounding area. He interviewed witnesses and owners. And he brought his own canine assistant, a spaniel, to the bridge to observe its behavior. At the infamous jump spot, the spaniel became intensely focused, its nose working overtime, fixated on the area below the parapet. It did not try to jump, but its behavior signaled an overwhelming olfactory stimulus. The question became, what is down there? The gorge below Overtoun Bridge is a dense, damp, shaded ecosystem. It is perfect habitat for small mammals. Sands's investigation soon pointed to a prime suspect, the European mink, Mustela lutriola, and more commonly, its close relative and invasive species, the American mink, Neovisin viscin. These small, sleek, semi-aquatic predators are known to inhabit such Scottish waterways, and they possess a powerful biological signature, an intensely musky scent produced by anal glands used for marking territory. Sands hypothesized that minks were traveling along the burn, marking their territory on the rocks and foliage directly beneath the bridge. Their scent, carried on updrafts from the waterfall spray and the natural chimney effect of the gorge, would rise and concentrate at the parapet wall, specifically at that spot where the stonework and airflow created a perfect scent funnel. For a dog, this wouldn't just be a smell. It would be an explosion of information. The musky, pungent, animalic odor of mink is among the most potent and interesting scents in the natural world for a canine. It screams prey. It screams live animal. It screams chase. But here lies the critical twist of Overtoun Bridge's design. The high parapet walls block the dog's line of sight. The dog can smell the intense, thrilling scent of prey, apparently just inches away, wafting up from below, but it cannot see the drop or the true location of the source. Its brain, wired by millennia of evolution, makes a fatal calculation. The prey is right there, just over this low wall. I must get to it. In essence, the bridge creates a perceptual trap. The dog's overwhelming olfactory sense overrides its visual caution. It scrambles up the wall not to commit suicide, but to launch a predatory pounce. It is an act of hunting, not despair. The leap is a miscalculation of geography, driven by a sensory overload. Sands tested this theory. He introduced the scent of mink to dogs in controlled environments and observed classic prey drive behaviors: fixation, trembling, and a powerful urge to get to the scent source. He also noted that the breeds most represented in the jumps, spaniels, retrievers, terriers, are precisely those bred for hunting and tracking with the most powerful prey drives. This scientific theory is elegant. It is testable. It fits the observable facts: the specific location, the scent funnel, the breed predisposition, hunting dogs, the weather resistance, sense carry in all conditions, and the focused behavior before the leap, prey fixation. But does it explain everything? Does it explain the survivors who return to jump again? Does it explain why only this one bridge among thousands in mink habitat causes this specific repeated tragedy? And most hauntingly, does the sheer suicidal outcome, the repeated fatal pounce, align with normal prey drive, or does it suggest something more? Dr. Sand's scent theory provides a powerful mechanical explanation. Let's dissect this perceptual trap in detail to understand just how perfectly and tragically Overtoun Bridge is designed to exploit canine psychology. First, the scent source. Mink musk is not a passive odor. It's a complex chemical cocktail designed to be persistent and attention-grabbing. It contains compounds like 2-propylthioetane, a sulfurous molecule that screams carnivore to a canine nose. This scent would cling to the damp rocks and vegetation in the gorge, creating a persistent, renewable source. The microclimate of the gorge, the constant moisture from the waterfall, the protected nature of the ravine, would preserve and concentrate these odor molecules far more than an open field. Second, the delivery system. The bridge acts as a baffle. The solid parapet wall creates a wind shadow on the walking surface, but at the top of the wall, air currents flowing up from the gorge create a Venturi effect. Scent-laden air is sucked up and over the parapet, creating a concentrated plume right at the dog's nose level at that specific spot. Elsewhere along the bridge, the airflow might be different, dispersing the scent. This explains the deadly precision of the location. Third, the canine sensory override. A dog's brain prioritizes input. When an olfactory stimulus is this strong, it can dominate other sensory processing, a phenomenon called olfactory capture. The dog's world shrinks to the scent. Its vision, which would normally assess the danger of the drop, is secondary. Its hearing, which might pick up the roar of the waterfall as a danger signal, is dampened. The instinctive sequence is triggered: scent, locate, chase, capture. The high wall is merely an obstacle to be surmounted in the pursuit. This explains the leap. But what about the return? Why would a dog that has survived the painful fall come back and try again? From a strict behaviorist perspective, this is harder to reconcile. One possibility is that the reward value of the scent is so incredibly high that it overrides the negative reinforcement of the pain. The dog's memory holds on to the intensity of the olfactory promise, not the consequence of the pursuit. It's like an addiction. The craving for the scent outweighs the memory of the punishment. Another, darker possibility is learned helplessness or confusion. The fall and injury are traumatic and disorienting. The dog may not clearly associate the trauma with the specific act of leaping from that spot. The compelling scent is still there calling. In its pained and confused state, it simply repeats the last action it associated with that powerful stimulus. Yet even with these explanations, skeptics of the pure scent theory raise valid points. Scotland has many bridges over mink-inhabited waterways. Why is Overtoun uniquely deadly? Some suggest its specific architecture, the height, the parapet design, the exact topography below, creates the perfect storm. Others point to the possibility of a secondary trigger amplifying the effect. This is where we must consider a synergy between the scientific and the speculative. Could the scent be the primary trigger, but the site's psychogeographic charge, the thin place energy, the residual trauma, somehow intensifies the dog's reaction? Not supernaturally but biochemically? Stress and fear hormones in the dog's own body can sharpen its senses and lower its impulse control. If the location induces a subtle, subconscious anxiety in the owner, who knows the stories, that tension transfers to the dog via the leash and body language. The dog is already in a slightly heightened state. Then it hits the scent plume. The combination of innate prey drive and acute stress could tip the balance from excited interest into a compulsive, uncontrollable surge. Dr. Sand's work remains the cornerstone of the scientific explanation. It is logical, evidence-based, and solves the core mystery of the how. But in the quiet laboratories of behavioral science, a question lingers. Does reducing the leap to a sensory miscalculation account for the profound, almost ritualistic strangeness that clings to the events? Does it explain why this story feels like a dark fairy tale, not a case study? Perhaps science has identified the weapon, the scent. But the motive, the reason this trap is so lethally effective at this particular place, may still be woven into the older stories of the glen. Soundscape evolves. The snuffling of the dog is joined by the whirring of a computer fan and the clicking of a mouse. We hear the sound of a 3D simulation loading, a wireframe model of the bridge and gorge with airflow patterns visualized as flowing lines of light. The clinical sounds of analysis take over. Dr. David Sands presented his findings with conviction. The case for many was closed. A tragic but explainable confluence of animal behavior, potent scent, and unfortunate architecture. Signs went up on Overtoun Bridge warning owners to keep their dogs on short leashes. The scientific community largely accepted the mink hypothesis as the most plausible answer to a bizarre public mystery. Yet, in the years since, the bridge has not relinquished its hold on the imagination, nor has it ceased its grim toll entirely. Why? Because the clean lines of the scent theory begin to blur when pressed against the full, messy reality of the phenomenon. Let's examine the loose ends. The survivors return. The scent theory struggles most here. If the leap is a predatory pounce gone wrong, the massive negative reinforcement of a 50-foot fall onto rocks should, in almost all cases, extinguish that behavior permanently. The dog should associate that spot with terror and pain. The fact that multiple survivors have actively sought to return and repeat the act suggests the triggering stimulus is not just attractive, but addictive or imperative in a way that simple prey scent is not. It hints at a compulsion that overrides learned avoidance, a characteristic more often associated with neurological triggers or profound instinctual drives. The specificity of the spot. While the Venturi effect explains a scent plume, is it so perfectly confined that in decades, across hundreds of dogs, not one has been triggered just a few feet to the left or right? It suggests an almost laser-like precision that pushes the laws of fluid dynamics and scent dispersal to their limit. Could there be a physical anchor at that exact point? A particular stone that retains scent? A tiny fissure acting as a chimney that makes it uniquely potent? The lack of widespread replication. If this is a simple matter of mink scent plus high wall, why aren't there Overtoun bridges all over Scotland or the world? Many locations share these characteristics. This singularity suggests Overtoun is either a one-in-a-million perfect storm of factors, or that the mink scent is a contributing factor, not the sole cause. It may be the fuel, but something else provides the spark. This leads us to a crucial distinction: the difference between a proximate cause and an ultimate cause. Proximate cause, the immediate mechanism. How does the dog get from the bridge to the gorge? Answer: it is triggered by an overwhelming scent that prompts a predatory leap over a wall that blocks its view of the drop. This is what Sands brilliantly identified. Ultimate cause, the why, the deeper reason. Why is this trigger so uniquely and fatally effective at this one location? And why does it create such aberrant behavior in its aftermath? This answer remains shrouded. It is possible that the ultimate cause is indeed a rare combination of mundane factors. A particularly dense and sedentary mink population, a unique stonework design that perfectly funnels scent, and a breed-specific predisposition in the local dog-walking community. A tragic coincidence of geography and biology. But the human mind, and the consistent eeriness of the reports, recoils at mere coincidence when the pattern is so stark. We are drawn back to the context. The bridge isn't in a vacuum. It's in the Overtoun Gorge, a place layered with stories of being a thin place. Could the ultimate cause be that this location primes both animals and humans for unusual experiences? Not through magic, but through subtle environmental cues, infrasound, geomagnetic variations, low-frequency sound from the waterfall, that science is only beginning to measure and understand? These cues could subtly alter brain states, making an animal more susceptible to fixed action patterns, like the prey drive sequence. The scent of mink may be the key that turns in the lock. But the lock itself, the canine brain's receptivity to override all caution, might be subtly unlocked by the place. As we close this scientific chapter, we are left not with a solution, but with a sophisticated, partial map. Science has illuminated the mechanism of the leap with great clarity. But it has also, in doing so, inadvertently highlighted the shadows just beyond its light, the strange behaviors that don't quite fit, the uniqueness that defies simple statistics. The investigation cannot end here. If the trigger is olfactory, could it also be auditory? Could something in the soundscape of the gorge, inaudible to us but piercing to a dog, be working in concert with the scent, or even be the primary trigger itself? Our quest for the ultimate cause must now follow the sound waves down into the damp stone and rushing water. We have followed the scent trail to the edge of the precipice. But what if the call from Overtoun Bridge is not carried on molecules, but on vibrations? What if the air itself, shaped by stone and water, is playing a note, or a chord, that only certain ears can hear? This chapter ventures into the often overlooked sensory realm of sound, and the possibility that the bridge is not just a visual and olfactory trap, but an acoustic one. The theory of an acoustic trigger arose from a simple observation. The phenomenon's location is not just a scent funnel, it is also a natural sound amplifier. The gorge is a stone channel. The waterfall provides a constant source of broadband noise, a sonic canvas upon which finer details are painted. The bridge, with its arches and parapets, acts as a baffle and a resonator. Could specific frequencies be focused, reflected, or generated here, creating an auditory signal that is profoundly disturbing or irresistibly compelling to dogs? To investigate, we must first understand the canine auditory world. Dogs hear frequencies up to 45,000 to 65,000 Hz, far beyond the human range of 20,000 Hz. Ultrasonic sounds are a constant, mostly unnoticed part of their environment. But some ultrasonic frequencies can cause discomfort, disorientation, or intense curiosity. Silent dog whistles work on this principle. Could the bridge be generating its own, inadvertent ultrasonic beacon? Enter the sound engineers and paranormal investigators who have brought sensitive equipment to Overtoun. Their readings have suggested anomalies. Some report spikes in ultrasonic activity at the jump point. The proposed sources are manifold. The wind harp effect. As wind forces its way through the narrow gaps between the bridge's stone blocks, or over specific eroded edges on the parapet, it can create a von Karman vortex street, a repeating pattern of swirling vortices that generate a steady, high-pitched tone. This is the same principle that makes telephone wires hum or a blade of grass whistle when stretched between your thumbs. At Overtoun, the specific geometry of the jump point stonework might be tuned, by chance, to produce a frequency squarely in the high range of canine hearing. Waterfall infrasound and ultrasonics. The massive, chaotic impact of water on rock generates sound across a vast spectrum, including infrasound below human hearing and ultrasound above it. The gorgeous shape could focus certain ultrasonic harmonics, like a parabolic dish, directing them upward to the bridge deck. This wouldn't be a pure tone, but a chaotic, hissing, high-frequency shimmer in the air. Structural resonance. The bridge itself is a massive stone instrument. The vibration from the waterfall, traffic, or even footfalls could cause it to vibrate at its natural resonant frequency. If this frequency has an ultrasonic harmonic, it could be amplified at certain points, like the jump spot where the parapet meets the deck. A dog standing there would feel this vibration through its paws and hear it, a full-body sensory experience. What would such a sound do to a dog? It wouldn't necessarily be painful like a loud bang. It could be disorienting, creating a sense of auditory vertigo. More intriguingly, it could be mesmerizing. Certain repetitive, high-frequency sounds can induce trance-like states or fixated behavior in animals. If the sound is intermittent, linked to gusts of wind, it could create a frustrating, game-like trigger. The sound appears, the dog locates it as coming from over there, the sound vanishes, reappears. The dog's focus becomes absolute. The leap could be a final, frustrated lunge to locate the elusive source of the intriguing, maddening sound. This theory dovetails eerily with the supernatural sentinel idea. What if the call from the thin place is not spiritual, but acoustic? A natural, sonic phenomenon that feels uncanny because we cannot perceive it, but that animals interpret as a signal? The dogs aren't seeing ghosts. They're hearing the landscape in a way we cannot, and the landscape at that spot is screaming in a silent register. The concept of an acoustic anomaly is compelling, but it must withstand scrutiny. Let's examine the potential evidence and the significant challenges this theory faces. Potential supporting evidence. Witness reports of pre-leap behavior. Some owners describe their dog not just sniffing, but cocking its head in a classic canine listening pose moments before the jump. This suggests an auditory stimulus, not just an olfactory one. The intense, fixed gaze into the void could be an attempt to locate the source of a sound, not a scent. The vacuum effect. The parapet wall creates not just a visual but an acoustic shadow. Sounds from the far side of the bridge are blocked, while sounds from the gorge below are reflected upwards. This could create an unusual audio spotlight, making sounds from the gorge seem disproportionately close and important, disorienting the dog's audio localization abilities. Survivor behavior revisited. An acoustic trigger could better explain the return of survivors. If the sound is intermittent, wind-dependent, a dog that jumped and survived might not have solved the puzzle. The intriguing, elusive sound might still be there calling. Its return is an attempt to finally catch the invisible, chirping prey. Historical precedent. There are other locations in the world where persistent, natural infrasound or ultrasound is linked to feelings of unease, dread, or haunting in humans, like the famous hum phenomena. If such sounds can affect humans subconsciously, it's logical that more potent, audible versions could directly drive animal behavior. Significant challenges and questions. Inconsistency. The most damning argument against a pure acoustic trigger is weather variability. The jumps occur in calm, windless conditions as well as in blustery ones. If the sound is generated by wind, the wind harp effect, it should be absent on calm days. Yet the phenomenon persists. This points either to a non-wind dependent sound source, like the waterfall's constant ultrasonic output, or suggests sound is not the primary trigger. Lack of conclusive data. While anecdotal reports of ultrasonic spikes exist, there is no published, peer-reviewed study that has consistently recorded a unique ultrasonic signature at the jump spot, distinct from the rest of the bridge or similar natural locations. The equipment used by paranormal investigators is often not calibrated to scientific standards, and readings can be influenced by electronic interference or misinterpretation. The breed question. If it's a high-frequency sound, why are long-nosed, scent-oriented breeds like retrievers most affected rather than breeds known for acute high-frequency hearing, like small terriers or herding dogs? This discrepancy leans the evidence back toward the olfactory hypothesis. This leads us to the most plausible middle ground, a multisensory trap. The true power of Overtoun Bridge may lie in a synergistic overload of canine senses. Consider this sequence. Step 1. Sound. A dog approaches the spot. A subtle, high-frequency sound from wind or water pricks its ears, drawing its attention to the parapet. Step 2. Scent. As it focuses, its nose detects the powerful rising plume of mink musk. Now, two senses are screaming about something below and over the wall. Step 3. Sight/orientation failure. The wall blocks the view. The dog cannot reconcile the source of the intense sound/scent cocktail. Its brain, receiving conflicting location data from different senses, defaults to the strongest drive: prey chase. Step 4. The leap. The combination creates a feedback loop of stimulation, overriding caution. The leap is the explosive release of this sensory conflict. In this model, the acoustic anomaly isn't the sole cause. It's the initial attractor, the hook that brings the dog to the precise spot and puts it in a state of heightened auditory awareness. The scent provides the compelling narrative of "prey here now." Together, they create an imperative that sight alone cannot countermand. This multisensory theory elegantly addresses the inconsistencies. It doesn't require the wind to always be blowing. Sometimes the scent alone might be enough. It explains the head-cocking response to sound and the frantic sniffing. It also explains the sight's uniqueness. Finding a location with both a perfectly focused scent funnel and a recurring acoustic anomaly is far rarer than finding one with just one of those factors. Overtoun Bridge, then, might be a rare and deadly sensory illusion. It presents a false, multi-layered reality to the dog's primary senses. The leap is not into death, but into the heart of the illusion, an attempt to make the confusing sensory picture resolve into a tangible truth. Soundscape becomes a representation of this sensory overload. The fluctuating ultrasonic whistle sound is joined by a pulsing, musky, organic bass tone scent. They are out of sync, creating a rhythmic dissonance. Then the visual cue is represented by a sudden, flatline silence, the blank wall of the parapet. The three elements loop faster and faster, building tension. We are left, then, not with a single silver bullet explanation, but with a more sophisticated and perhaps more terrifying model. Overtoun Bridge as a sensory deception engine. It doesn't just exploit one weakness in canine perception, it orchestrates a cascade of them. The sound, real or theorized, captures attention. The scent defines the target. The architecture conceals the cost. Together, they hijack the dog's decision-making process at the most fundamental, instinctual level. This framework finally offers a plausible explanation for the most haunting detail: the survivor's return. If the leap is born from a perfect storm of sensory inputs, the experience of falling and getting hurt doesn't disprove the sensory message. The dog's memory holds onto the overwhelming real sensation of prey presence and intriguing sound. The pain is a separate, terrible event that the animal may not logically connect to the act of pursuing the stimulus. When it returns, the sensory trap is still active. The siren song still plays. The memory of the thrilling scent and sound may even be stronger than the memory of the pain, especially if the injury has healed. The return is a tragic testament to the trap's perfect design. It doesn't just trigger an action. It creates a compelling false truth that is hard to unlearn. This perspective shifts our view of the bridge from a passively haunted place to an active, albeit accidental, predator. Its prey is not the dogs themselves but their normal, healthy instincts. It weaponizes their greatest strengths, their noses and ears, against them. There is a deep existential horror in this. It means that in the wrong place, the very tools an animal uses to navigate and thrive in the world can be tuned to destroy it. And what of the human role in this? We built the bridge. We introduced the stone parapet that creates the visual barrier and the acoustic shadow. Our activities may have even encouraged the mink population. In this light, the phenomenon is a form of unintended consequence, a lethal design flaw in our interaction with the landscape. The warning sign at the bridge's entrance is not just a safety notice. It is an admission of this flaw, a marker of a place where human engineering and natural law have created a fatal dissonance. The acoustic theory, whether standalone or part of a multisensory model, ultimately serves a greater purpose. It reaffirms that the mystery of Overtoun Bridge is rooted in the physical world. It may be strange, it may be complex, but it is not supernatural. It is a puzzle of physics, biology, and psychology. The call is not from a spirit, but from the wind, the water, and the musky glands of a small mammal. The sentinel is not a ghost, but a combination of stone and air pressure. Yet, in solving the how, we may have lost something of the why that gives the story its power. The reduction of the leap to a sensory glitch can feel unsatisfying. It doesn't touch the eerie resonance of the story, the feeling that this place is wrong in a narrative sense. Perhaps that lingering eeriness is the final artifact of the mystery, the human mind's insistence on finding pattern and meaning, even in tragic accident. We wrap the cold facts in the warmer, darker cloth of story because pure mechanism feels too hollow for such repeated, focused tragedy. As we prepare for our final chapter, we carry with us the scientist's map, a diagram of scent plumes, sound waves, and behavioral triggers. It is a convincing map. But as we will see, even with this map in hand, the bridge retains its power to warn, to haunt, and to defy full understanding. The gap between explanation and experience remains, and in that gap, the mystery lives on. We arrive now at the present-day Overtoun Bridge. The mystery has been measured, sampled, theorized, and documented. Science has delivered its verdict, a tragic confluence of potent scent, perhaps abetted by subtle sound, and a stone wall that hides the terrible cost of the chase. The story, it seems, should be over. A cause identified, a warning posted, a danger managed. And yet, a simple laminated sign stands at the bridge's approach, a silent sentinel in its own right. It reads, with bureaucratic politeness and grim necessity, "Please keep your dog on a short lead." This is the official answer. This is the compromise between the unsolvable and the practical. We cannot erase the scent, silence the gorge, or tear down the bridge. So we manage the risk. We shorten the leash. But the sign is more than an instruction. It is an admission. An admission that our understanding, however sophisticated, is incomplete. We understand the mechanism well enough to warn, but not well enough to fully disarm the trap. The sign admits that the bridge retains a power we cannot nullify, only guard against. And the power remains. While reported incidents have decreased thanks to awareness and the warning, they have not ceased entirely. Dogs still pause, fixate, and strain at that spot. The most chilling reports are not of new tragedies, but of near misses and second attempts by survivors. These stories defy the neat conclusion of the sensory trap theory. They suggest that for some dogs the experience creates not a fear, but a fixation, a puzzle their minds cannot leave unsolved. This forces us to confront the final, stubborn core of the mystery. The leap is not just an instinctual error. It is, for some, a learned behavior with a compulsive quality. What begins as a sensory hijacking may, through the traumatic and disorienting experience of the fall and recovery, transform into something else. A behavioral loop that the dog feels driven to complete, as if scratching a psychic itch. Think of it this way. The initial leap creates a powerful, chaotic memory, a jumble of intense sense/sound followed by freefall, impact, pain, and rescue. The dog's brain, trying to make sense of this, might forge an aberrant connection. The overwhelming stimulus is linked to the dramatic physical release of the leap. In its confused state, returning to the stimulus and reenacting the leap might feel like the way to resolve the intense, unresolved memory. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism, born in a perfect storm of instinct overload and trauma. This moves the mystery from the fields of zoology and acoustics into the realm of canine neuropsychology. It suggests Overtoun Bridge doesn't just trigger a pre-programmed sequence. It can, in some cases, rewire the sequence into a compulsive ritual. This is the shadow that science's light has not fully illuminated. We can map the trigger, but we cannot yet map the haunted aftermath in the mind of a survivor. And so the bridge stands. It is neither fully explained nor fully mystical. It exists in a middle state, a controlled mystery. We have built a fence of understanding around it, but the strange energy still flickers within. Overtoun Bridge, in its grim persistence, has become more than a local curiosity. It has evolved into a parable. A story about the limits of our senses, the fragility of our animal companions' instincts, and the unintended consequences of building our world atop an older, wilder one. The bridge forces a humbling realization. We share our environment with creatures who inhabit a vastly different sensory reality. We walk the same path, but we experience different worlds. Our reality is dominated by sight, theirs by smell and sound. At Overtoun, these realities fatally diverge. What we perceive as a scenic stone bridge, they perceive as the thrilling epicenter of a hunting ground. This disconnect is not a flaw. It is a fundamental condition of sharing the planet with other beings. The tragedy of Overtoun is a violent magnification of this everyday truth. It also challenges our notion of solving a mystery. We crave clean, singular answers. The mink scent theory provided one, and for many it closed the case. But the lingering oddities, the returns, the specificity, the eerie feel of the place, remind us that some phenomena are overdetermined. They have multiple, interlocking causes that resonate together. Removing one, e.g., keeping a dog on a lead to prevent the leap, doesn't erase the others, the scent, the sound, the psychogeographic weight. The mystery's essence lingers in that synergistic space between causes. This is why the sign is the perfect symbol. It represents pragmatic, incomplete knowledge. We know enough to prevent most tragedies, but not enough to claim mastery over the phenomenon. It is a lesson in intellectual humility. The bridge whispers that there are layers to the world that our science can describe but not always disenchant. The description of the scent plume doesn't strip the location of its eerie power, it just explains the mechanics of that power. Furthermore, the bridge's story is inextricably linked to human narrative. The 1994 infanticide, the tales of the thin place, the legends of the White Lady, these are not separate from the canine mystery, they are part of its ecosystem. They shape how we, the observers and storytellers, feel about the bridge. This emotional and narrative charge undoubtedly affects the owners who walk there, which in turn affects the dogs through the subtle language of leash tension and human anxiety. The mystery exists in a feedback loop between the physical triggers and the stories we tell about them. We cannot fully extricate one from the other. So, what are we to do with such a place? Demolishing the bridge would be an act of fear, an admission that we cannot coexist with the puzzle. Leaving it as it was would be irresponsible. The warning sign and the short leash represent the middle path: acknowledgement, caution, and respect. We acknowledge the power of the place, we caution against its danger, and we respect it by altering our behavior, not by demanding it alter its nature. In this, Overtoun Bridge becomes a modern-day totem. A totem is an object or place that serves as an emblem of a group's identity and its relationship to the unseen forces of the world. Overtoun is a totem for our relationship with animal instinct, with environmental complexity, and with the unknown pockets that still exist in our mapped and measured world. It warns us that our control is provisional, that the wild world can reach through our stone and mortar with a scent or a sound and reclaim a life in an instant. The unsolved warning is therefore not a failure. It is a mature and honest response to a complex reality. It says, "Here there is danger we do not fully understand. Pass with care." Soundscape shifts. The tapping sign and ambient gorge sounds are joined by the soft, solemn notes of a single low cello. It plays a slow, repeating, unresolved melody, a musical representation of the persistent question mark. It is not scary music. It is contemplative, heavy with the weight of accepted mystery. As our journey across Overtoun Bridge draws to a close, we find ourselves not at an answer, but at a vantage point. We have peered into the gorge through the lenses of folklore, tragedy, chemistry, acoustics, and psychology. Each lens revealed a different facet of the truth, but none captured the entire chilling gem. Perhaps that is the final lesson of the Bridge of No Return. Some truths are not singular, but layered. The truth of Overtoun is the scent of mink and the whistle of the wind. It is the tragedy of 1994 and the ancient stories of the thin place. It is a design flaw in stone and a quirk in the canine mind. It is all these things, operating in concert, creating a phenomenon greater than the sum of its parts. The dogs that leap are not crazy, nor are they suicidal in any human sense. They are, in that fatal moment, perfectly responsive. They are responding with magnificent, terrible fidelity to the world as their senses report it to them. They are obeying the oldest commands written in their genes: chase, hunt, investigate. The tragedy is that at this one spot, the report is a lie, a sensory illusion woven by water, stone, wind, and animal musk. They are leaping into a map that does not match the territory. And we, their companions, are left with the awful responsibility of translating between these realities. The short lead is our translation tool. It is the physical manifestation of our understanding, our love, and our limitations. It says, "I know your world is real, but here it is wrong. Trust me." So, the mystery endures, but its nature has changed. It is no longer a frightening enigma to be solved at all costs. It has become a known unknown, a mapped hazard, a place where we have learned to navigate the edge of understanding. The unsolved warning is a testament to that hard-won wisdom. It is a marker that says, beyond this point, the instincts of your faithful friend cannot be trusted. The landscape here speaks a language you will never hear, but it is a siren song to them. As we walk away from the bridge, the warning sign tapping in the wind, we carry with us a new respect for the fragile interface between our world and the richer, wilder, more fragrant and resonant world of our dogs. Overtoun Bridge stands as a permanent, sobering monument to that borderland. It reminds us that love sometimes means holding the leash a little tighter, not because we don't trust our dogs, but because we understand all too well the powerful and sometimes deceptive world they perceive. The bridge does not give up its final secret, but in withholding it, it gives us something else. A profound lesson in humility, care, and the enduring, complex bond with the creatures who share our lives, but not all of our reality.